This is the External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, slamming Rahul Gandhi over the standoff at the LAC. Let's listen in.
This party is saying that neither Mr. Modi nor you even mentioned China.
If we were being accommodative, who sent the Indian army to the LAC? Rahul Gandhi didn't send them. NarendraModi sent them. We have today the largest peacetime deployment in our history on the China border. And please notice, I said China, China.
The op-eds which come in foreign media, George Soros' statement on democracy, which say Mr. Modi's image has got hurt. The BJP, on the other hand, says that there's a conspiracy.
There is a phrase, war by other means. There is also, think of it, this is politics by another means. Why suddenly, there's a surge of reports and, attention and views. I mean, were some of these things not happening earlier? You had to make a documentary. Many things happened in Delhi in 1984. Why didn't we see a documentary on that? You think the timing is accidental? I mean, let me tell you one thing. I don't know if election season.
The Congress party is saying that neither Mr. Modi nor you even mentioned China.
If we were being accommodative, who sent the Indian army to the LAC? Rahul Gandhi didn't send them. NarendraModi sent them. We have today the largest peacetime deployment in our history on the China border. And please notice, I said China, China.
The op-eds which come in foreign media, George Soros' statement on democracy, which say Mr. Modi's image has got hurt. The BJP, on the other hand, says that there's a conspiracy.
There is a phrase, war by other means. There is also, think of it, this is politics by another means. Why suddenly, there's a surge of reports and, attention and views. I mean, were some of these things not happening earlier? You had to make a documentary. Many things happened in Delhi in 1984. Why didn't we see a documentary on that? You think the timing is accidental? I mean, let me tell you one thing.
The Congress party is saying that neither Mr. Modi nor you even mentioned China.
Let's also now bring in our colleague and managing editor, Zakka Jacob, who in fact is now joining us from our newsroom. Zakka, this is an interview that the External Affairs Minister has given to ANI, to Smita Prakash. Essentially, the criticism from the Congress for the longest time has been that there is a build-up, there is aggression that is happening at the line of actual control. We can see hamlets that are continuing to be positioned. I believe this is the response of the Foreign External Affairs Minister to criticism like that. Can you talk to us about the response that's coming in from the Minister?
Oh, absolutely. I think he has said this in Parliament as well, and continually the attack from the opposition has been that Mr. Modi and Mr. Jaishankar are loath to speak about China, given the situation on the line of actual control. From 2020 onwards, China's unilateral actions trying to change the status quo and India's rather befitting response to it. Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister there in this podcast with Smita Prakash, the editor of ANI, saying that it was not Rahul Gandhi who sent the Indian army to the line of actual control, it was Narendra Modi who sent the Indian army to the line of actual control. And he goes on to add that this is the largest peacetime deployment of the Indian army at the line of actual control, because the circumstances on the ground have altered and have been altered unilaterally by China. So I think it's a very strong defense from the External Affairs Minister. Again, what we would like to know is, why has China done this? And the attack from the opposition that China seems to be getting away with it because it believes that of the 7 places where these transgressions had happened, 5 have been resolved, but 2 still have not been resolved. And the opposition's contention is these 2 will not get resolved because of the approach of the Modi government. Now you've had the foreign minister attacking Rahul Gandhi, saying it was not him who sent the army to the line of actual control to defend Indian territory. It is Narendra Modi as Prime Minister who deployed the Indian army, and the minister going on to say that this is the largest deployment in peacetime at the line of actual control. He's also taken on this entire George Soros BBC documentary controversy by saying that, while the government has no problems with people making documentaries or news reports or whatever you have, the point is that why are people not making documentaries on the 1984 anti-Sikh riots, for example? That's the contention that's been put out by the foreign minister. He believes that all of this is part of a concerted effort at non-democratic means of trying to topple the government here. As he went on to say in that excerpt that's been released by ANI, election season may not be here in Delhi or Mumbai, but certainly it seems to be pre-election season in New York and London. So that is the External Affairs Minister pulling back no punches in his attack either on the opposition or for that matter, against what the government perceives to be a sort of concerted attempt by vested interests, whether it is a George Soros, whether it is the BBC, on trying to push through a certain narrative, a certain sort of set of facts, as it were, to try and push through that narrative that Mr. Modi's government is anti-minority or is against the freedom of press, so on and so forth. I think we should play out that excerpt that's been released by ANI. This is a podcast that the External Affairs Minister has given to the editor of ANI. Let's play out that excerpt and then we'll come back to some political reactions on this as well.
Delhi in 1984. Why didn't we see a documentary on that? You think the timing is accidental? But let me tell you one thing. I don't know if election season has started in India and Delhi or not, but for sure it has started in London and New York.
The Congress party is saying that neither Mr. Modi nor you even mentioned China.
If we were being accommodative, who sent the Indian army to the LAC? Rahul Gandhi didn't send them. NarendraModi sent them. We have today the largest peacetime deployment in our history on the China border. And please notice, I said China, China.
The op-eds which come in foreign media, George Soros' statement on democracy, which say Mr. Modi's image has got hurt. The BJP, on the other hand, says that there's a conspiracy.
There is a phrase, war by other means. There is also, think of it, this is politics by another means. Why suddenly, there's a surge of reports and attention and views. I mean, were some of these things not happening earlier? You had to make a documentary. Many things happened in Delhi in 1984. Why didn't we see a documentary on that? You think the timing is accidental? But let me tell you one thing. I don't know if election season has started in India and Delhi or not, but for sure it has started in London and New York.
Well, Zakka continues to be with us. Zakka, the entire interview, of course, will be put out later in the evening. Excerpts are already out. The foreign minister speaking on a whole host of issues, from Rahul Gandhi, the criticism coming in from the opposition as far as China is concerned, and also the most recent issues as far as the BBC documentary and George Soros is concerned. Let's talk about the BBC documentary and George Soros. The opposition has been saying we've been demanding JPC, so even if the government doesn't want to respond to us, you will have to respond because there is a global eye on it. The foreign minister making a very crucial point that look at when all of this is happening. The centre doesn't have an issue as far as criticism is concerned, but the timing is very crucial. How do you see this playing out politically?
Clearly, I think the government is taking this full throttle. It is attacking the opposition on this issue front and center. And not just the opposition, the words that the External Affairs Minister used was that, there is a phrase called war by other means. This is politics by another means. And then he goes on to say, think about it. If people want to do documentaries, they're free to do documentaries. But how come no one's doing a documentary on the 1984 anti-Sikh riots that happened in Delhi when the Congress party was in power? He believes, rightly or wrongly, that all of this is part of a concerted attempt, politics by other means, as he phrased it, in cohort with the opposition parties here in India to try and, in a non-democratic fashion, try and topple this government. And then he goes on to say that I don't know if election season has begun in Delhi for 2024, presumably, but it certainly seems to have begun in London and in Washington. Now, here's the thing. This is a hugely important year for India. India is hosting the G20. India is hosting the SCO. This is really the year that India is sort of putting itself out there on the global stage in a way that it's telling the world that here is the fastest growing large economy in the world. Here are 1 billion people. We are going to be the big counterweight to China. So the government, in a sense, expects some of these attacks from what it perceives as vested interests. But the problem is that those vested interests also have huge amounts of influence in those respective governments, whether it's the government of the UK or whether it's the government of the United States. Even on the BBC controversy, for example, all that we've heard from Rishi Sunak is what he said in Parliament on day one, where he said that he doesn't agree with the characterization of the Prime Minister in that documentary. But after that, we have not heard anything from the British Prime Minister. In the case of George Soros, we have not heard anything from Mr. Biden or the White House or the US State Department. So I think India is also aware that this is a bit of a tightrope walk. This is a diplomatic tightrope walk. On the one hand, you want the 20 biggest countries of the world to come here. India wants to be a good host. India wants to sort of announce this as for want of a better phrase, a coming off party, right? This is like the big India moment, as it were, coming in 2023. But at the same time, there are these hits, there are these jabs that are coming in from London and from Washington. So I think this is going to be a bit of a tightrope walk, and the External Affairs Minister, I think, clearly giving that indication that this government under Mr. Modi, himself included, is not going to pull back punches if they feel that there are these quote-unquote hit jobs that are being done intentionally. He didn't, I mean, at least in the excerpt that's been released, we haven't heard anything on the Hindenburg report. But I'm sure that is something that he believes in as well, just like, other members in this government believe that the Hindenburg report was a hit job against a leading corporate house in India, which has close ties to the ruling party. So I think you are going to see this sort of a line by government and ministers in government. They're not going to be seen as, being on the defensive on this issue. They will give it as good as they get.
Right. Zakka, we'll just request you to stay on with us. Let's just take some political reactions from the BJP. We have Shehzad Poonawalla now joining us on the broadcast. Shehzad, good to have you with us here on CNN News 18. The larger point that the External Affairs Minister is making, that there are certain people who are pushing out a narrative, and the timing of when all of this is happening is very crucial. Why does the BJP believe that there is a certain narrative that is being pushed by certain individuals like George Soros and others?
There's always been an attempt to do Rajniti over issues of Rashtra-niti, and these are the people who in fact have an MOU with the Chinese. These are the people who at the time when they were in power in the UPA surrendered our economic and territorial interests to China, and perhaps for certain vested interests. These are the people who gave away Aksai Chin. These are the people who gave away Demjok, Doomcheli, Zorawar Fort and many other places. 600 square kilometers was incursed when they were in power. We had a trade deficit that ballooned by 33 times. And then when they turn around and just for the sake of your politics, they compromise national security, the way they spread a fake narrative, that has to be called out. And I think that has been done by the Minister of External Affairs on multiple occasions. But it is also evident that it is not concern for the soldiers or for the armed forces. You've heard how Rahul Gandhi has even used the word pitai of the Sena. Now, no person who has actually got national interest...
But Shehzad, just give me 10 seconds. That clarification actually has come from the Congress party time and again, that they weren't actually targeting the soldiers or the armed forces. They stand with the defense forces of the country. They, in fact, were questioning the policies of the central government.
So let's analyze that. When Mr. Antony was the Honorable Defence Minister, at that time he said the best policy was to keep the LAC underdeveloped. And at this point of time...
Shehzad, let me just give me 30 seconds. Just stay on with us. Let me actually take that point that you're making to Congress's Rashid Alvi also, who is joining us on the broadcast. So good to have you on the broadcast with us. How do you see the counter that's coming in from the External Affairs Minister to the criticism that the Congress has been making? First, let's talk about China. Now, the External Affairs Minister is saying, look at the kind of deployment. As far as the peacetime deployment is concerned, is one of the largest that we are seeing today. And in fact, the soldiers that have been sent were not sent by Rahul Gandhi, but by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Whether Rahul Gandhi has claimed it that I have sent it, Congress party has claimed it. What kind of this foreign minister is? Prime Minister will send, Chief of the Army will send, Defense Minister will take decision. How can you say that Rahul Gandhi has not sent? Rahul Gandhi will send after 2024. Till 2024, it is the responsibility of Narendra Modi ji, who is the Prime Minister of the country. Only after 2024, when BJP will be out and it will be our government, then decision will be taken by us.
No, but the point that the External Affairs Minister is making to the criticism that the Congress continues to question as far as the policy with China is concerned, they continue to question that there is aggression that is happening and policy, probably there's not enough deployment. So there's an answer coming to that you talk about numbers, not just optics. As far as the peacetime deployment is concerned, it's one of the largest that we are seeing.
It is our responsibility to ask. It is our responsibility to question. Why government is not coming out to answer our questions? They are not allowing us even to discuss any issue in the parliament. Why? Who is responsible for this? They are.
Shehzad, do you want to respond to that criticism? This is something that the opposition has been saying.
I do not want to be part of any discussion.
Okay. We seem to have lost that connection with Rashid Alvi of the Congress. But Shehzad, do you want to respond to the criticism? Essentially, the opposition has been saying that it's all okay when you come out and give interviews and you want to, hit back at the opposition. But what about the specific demands of the opposition? They feel they're being silenced. They've been asking JPC and others. All of that has not resulted in any results.
The irony died a million times when Rashid Alvi spoke about having a discussion in Parliament, yet he can't even have a discussion on the phone. So that is their double standards. By the way, 2611 was not discussed in Parliament. A statement was late. By the way, on a lot of other national security issues, statements were late. There was never a discussion during the UPA tenure because there are certain matters that are integral to our national security which can't be discussed in a public platform, even including Parliament, because there are certain elements to it that are related to national security. Having said that, let's analyze on two very important aspects. One, the LAC infrastructure that has been developed this time. Now, whether it is the roads connectivity, whether it is the infrastructure that has been built, whether it is the tunnels that have been created, whether it's the shifting and the deployment of our soldiers, or the deployment of various habitat control centers for our troops, or whether it is about putting the Rafales and other things there at the strategic places, that has happened now and it didn't happen before this. And these are facts that you can't run away from. And therefore, the question today is that if Rahul Gandhi is going to do it after 2024, after Mr. Rashid Alvi claims, why didn't their governments in successive years do what was required to get back Aksai Chin? Why did they give up 600 square kilometers? Why did they give up so many areas, including Tia Pangnak and Zorawar Fort and Doom Chowk and Dem Chowk and Doom Cheli? So, it is one thing to make politics out of issues of national security. It's quite another to answer on your own track record. Today, what is being done is only pure politics to undermine our armed forces, and therefore Rahul Gandhi may clarify 10,000 times. But when you say ki Sena pit kara gayi, that shows the mindset of a person who has signed an MOU with the Chinese.
Okay, Shehzad, we leave the conversation there. We appreciate you joining us here on CNN News 18. We also have defense expert retired